She's not dead. The janitor stops Billionaire's funeral to save her. What happened next shocked everyone. The rain fell in heavy sheets that morning, turning the cemetery soil into a dark, trembling swamp and making every breath feel cold enough to bite. But no one noticed the weather, not really, because all eyes were fixed on the polished oak coffin at the center of the gathering. The coffin that held the young heiress, Alina Rowan, the only daughter of one of the country's most untouchable billionaires. The mourners stood stiff and pristine under their black umbrellas, their silence heavy with the weight of wealth, loss, and reputation. And just when the priest lifted his hand to give the final blessing, when the billionaire father bowed his head in defeated grief, a single raspy voice cut through the air like lightning. The voice of a man no one expected, a man who should not have been there. A janitor. "Stop the funeral! She's not dead!" Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, miracles, and second chances, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It truly helps us bring more heart-touching stories to you. His name was Samuel Hart, a 60-year-old janitor who worked in the hospital where Alina had been pronounced dead just 3 days earlier. He was soaked from head to toe, wearing mud-streaked boots and a flimsy raincoat that clung to him like wet paper. People gasped and whispered in disgust, wondering how a man like him had dared to interrupt the funeral of the Rowan family. But Samuel wasn't thinking about money or reputation or consequences. His chest heaved, his hands shook, and yet his voice carried a strange certainty, because he had seen something no one else had bothered to look for. For years, Samuel had lived quietly at the edges of society, unnoticed except when things needed cleaning or fixing. He had seen hundreds of patients living, dying, and hanging somewhere in between. He had learned to recognize the faintest flicker of a pulse, the softest tremble of a fingertip. And when he had been cleaning the hallway outside Alina Rowan's room the night before her body was moved to the morgue, he had noticed something that still haunted him. Her finger twitched. It was small, so small that anyone else would have ignored it, but he didn't. He had tried to alert the nurses, but they had brushed him off, too overwhelmed with other emergencies and too convinced of the doctor's verdict. Samuel had no authority, no influence, and no one listened. But he could not forget what he saw, so he followed that coffin, praying he wasn't losing his mind, but terrified of what would happen if he was right. As Samuel stumbled closer, 2 security guards moved to block him. The billionaire father, Adrian Rowan, lifted his eyes in quiet rage, insulted that a mere janitor was causing a scene at his daughter's final farewell. But before anyone could drag Samuel away, his trembling voice cut through the cold air again, insisting that they check the coffin, just once, just to be sure. The murmurs grew louder. Some called him crazy, some pitied him, and some wondered, in the deepest corners of their hearts, what if? Adrian's jaw clenched hard, torn between fury and a father's unbearable hope. His world had already collapsed. He had nothing left to lose except the faint possibility that this stranger, this humble janitor, was telling the truth. With a shaking voice but a steady hand, Adrian commanded the guards to open the coffin. The entire cemetery held its breath. As the lid creaked open, the white linen around Alina's motionless body seemed to glow under the pale gray sky. She looked peaceful, almost too peaceful, but pale in a way that made the living uneasy. Samuel stepped closer, ignoring the disapproving glares, and placed his fingers gently against her wrist. Nothing. Or maybe a flutter? He wasn't sure. He wiped his hand on his drenched coat and checked again, pressing deeper, closing his eyes to concentrate. There, faint. So faint it could be imagination. But then her eyelids twitched ever so slightly, like the soft flutter of a bird trapped beneath ice. Gasps erupted. Someone shouted. The priest staggered backwards. Adrian's face crumpled as he dropped to his knees beside the coffin, whispering his daughter's name as if saying it might summon her back from the edge. The doctor in attendance rushed forward, fingers trembling as he checked Alina's pulse. His pupils widened in horror and disbelief. "She's alive," he whispered. "She's actually alive." Chaos broke loose in the cemetery. Umbrellas fell. People cried. Others ran for emergency equipment. But Samuel stood still, tears blending with the rain. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't anything special. But he had kept watching when no one else had, believing when everyone else stopped. And that was enough. Alina was rushed back to the hospital, placed under immediate care, and revived from what doctors later described as a rare condition, a coma so deep it mimicked death. Had she been buried even for a few minutes, she would have suffocated, and if not for Samuel, she would have been lost forever. Over the next days, Adrian visited Samuel repeatedly. He learned that the janitor lived alone, struggled with medical bills of his own, and had never asked for anything in return for what he had done. Samuel simply cared in a way most people didn't anymore. And when Alina finally woke, weak but alive, the first thing she asked for, after her father, was to meet the man who saved her. When Samuel walked into her room, unsure and humble as always, Alina reached for his hand with fragile fingers and squeezed it with a strength he didn't expect. She looked at him with tear-filled eyes that held gratitude beyond words. She didn't need to speak. For the first time in years, someone truly saw Samuel, not as a janitor, not as background, but as a human being whose heart had saved a life worth billions. Weeks passed and everything changed. Adrian insisted on giving Samuel anything he wanted, money, housing, opportunities. But Samuel asked for only one thing, better treatment and respect for hospital staff, especially the ones who were overlooked. He asked for empathy. He asked for kindness. And Adrian listened. He funded new programs, improved training, and ensured that no voice, from doctor to janitor, would ever be ignored again. Before the story ends, if this moment has touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support means the world. As Alina recovered and rebuilt her life, she stayed in contact with Samuel, visiting him often and calling him family. She owed him more than her life. She owed him a future. And Samuel, who had lived quietly and invisibly for decades, finally found a place where his kindness wasn't just seen, it was celebrated. Special request. Comment below what part of the story touched you the most. In the end, Samuel's courage reminded the world of something simple yet profound. Sometimes the most extraordinary miracles come from the most ordinary hearts. And sometimes a single act of noticing, of caring, can rewrite a destiny that seemed already sealed.